Welcome to the Darkstream, VoxDay, voxday.blogspot.com, and of course, Castelia House. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk about Jordanetics again because I've noticed that a lot of Jordan Peterson fans seem to have some kind of difficulty understanding that I'm not inventing anything. And they also seem to have a problem grasping the point that it's not about me. It's not about what I happen to think about Peterson. It's about what the facts are. And it's about what is actually going on, both in Peterson's philosophy, as well as his motivations, his goals, and his objectives. Okay? So, a number of the accusations that have been directed at my critiques of Peterson tend to be focused on me. Now, I'm not going to even bother addressing those various accusations. What I'm going to do, and this appears to have been helpful for some of the folks on the blog, is simply directly address the points that Peterson raised by answering some of the questions that he himself has asked. Now, in some cases, these are actual questions that are posed in his own words. In other cases, I have taken what he provides as a direct assertion and simply rephrased it in the form of a question. So, let's start. In Maps of Meaning, Peterson asks, what if it was nothing but our self-deceit, our cowardice, hatred, and fear that pollutes our experience and turns the world into hell? Well, if that was the case, if the problems of the world that make the world into hell on earth are simply generated internally, then the problem could be solved by sweet reason and a dedication to facing the truth about ourselves. And not truth in the sense that Peterson describes it, in the sense of survival, but in the sense of what is actually objectively true and real. But that's not the basis of the problem of evil. That is not the source of evil. And so, because that is not the source of evil, it cannot be solved by fixing our self-deceit, our cowardice, our hatred, and our fear. Okay? Beyond that is also the problem of supernatural evil. Some people believe in it, some people don't. But obviously, if there is any truth whatsoever to evil outside of the heart of man, if it's not all internally generated, then there's absolutely nothing that can be done internally. It won't do anything for you. And so, and then finally, in answer to that question, I will point out that Peterson's own stated belief that it is group identification that lies at the bottom of the human motivations for evil, it is indicates that what he's saying is not true. I got a comment there saying buffering. I don't even know what that means. Okay. Second question. Question number 2. This is a hypothesis, at least, as good as any other, admirable and capable of generating hope. Why can't we make the experiment and find out if it is true? Well, the reason is very simple. First, Peterson wants to try this experiment out on a global level. And that means that this experiment will turn out like every other utopian experiment. It will turn out like communism. It will turn out like National Socialism. It will turn out like that crazy Russian cult back in the 19th century where people were castrating themselves. It will turn out badly. It will turn out with large quantities of bloodshed. Question 3. Does survival itself depend upon a solution to the problem of war? And the answer very clearly is no. War is not the problem as far as human survival is concerned. The war has actually killed far fewer people than governments turning on their own people. War is not the problem. War has been around humanity for as long as humanity has kept written records. War has been around as long as humanity has dug up archaeological records. War can actually be traced back to chimpanzees. So the problem is with science in general and technology in particular. You cannot begin to address the danger to the human species without addressing technology and science. They are the problem, not war, not religion. The problem is the capabilities being given to man by his own scientific and technological achievements. Now, that being said, inasmuch as this is a problem of survival, the problem is likely to cure itself because the infrastructure required to maintain this level of destructive technology is considerably more fragile than either the Earth or the entire human species. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not the possibility of a lot of bloodshed and so forth, but the reality is that the problem of technology is going to solve itself, or is likely to solve itself, insofar as the survival of the human species is concerned. Question 4. Is Tammy Peterson's dream that it was 5 minutes to midnight back in 2016 prophetic or significant in any way? My answer to that is no. It was a bad dream and nothing else. The whole 5 minutes to midnight has been around for at least 2 generations. I remember when they actually set the clock back a bit after the fall of the Soviet Union. So there's no significance to that. Tammy Peterson is not the oracle at Delphi. She's not a prophet. And I would say that her dream is considerably less significant than Jordan Peterson's own dream about dog-headed aliens butchering his cousin and offering the meat to him. So, I don't think that you can really understand what a lunatic Jordan Peterson is. I don't think you can truly understand how mentally unstable he is until you read about his own characterization of his own dreams and the significance that he ascribes to them. Question number 5. Is history itself a unitary phenomenon? No. History is not a unitary phenomenon. Peterson's idea is ludicrous. History is neither a force nor is it an inevitability. It is merely a very, very incomplete record of the past. Peterson is no more correct in his bizarre take on history than Marx was or than Francis Fukuyama was. A commenter suggests maybe it was a one-off nightmare. No, we're actually told that Peterson had nightmares of this sort for years. And I'll explain what I think the significance of that is as soon as I get done with the questions here. Question number 6. Is Western culture the only one to possess a history based on objective events? Now, Peterson believes that it is. Peterson outright claims that only Western culture possesses a history based on objective events, and he claims that all other cultures, China, everything else, only possesses narrative. This is astonishingly false. It is ridiculously inaccurate. There are ancient Egyptian records of the height of the annual Nile flooding dating back to 3050 BC. The formal rules of sumo date back to 726 AD. The tax records of the Qin dynasty date back to 221 BC. There is a considerable amount of information making it very, very clear that many different cultures possess history based on objective events. All of this relates to Peterson's claim that prior to 500 years ago, nobody thought empirically. It's simply not true. He's absolutely wrong. Excuse me. And finally, question number 7. Have I discovered something that no one else has any idea about? My answer to that is no. You're just a very frightened and mentally disturbed individual who is literally driven crazy due to your fear of death. That is my answer to his bizarrely grandiose notion that he was thinking great thoughts that no one had ever thought before. You know, there's a lot of people who don't understand that all of these stream of references that Peterson strings together are little more than word salad. You know, if you don't understand the significance of what those references are, if you don't know enough about the subjects that he's addressing, they might sound impressive because you can't follow them. But if you know enough, then you see what a load of nonsense it is. And so, now let me be very clear. You know, I felt that I had pointed out some of the fundamental flaws of Jordan Peterson's philosophy, but somehow, whatever formulation I expressed was not something that most people understood. So let me explain at the most basic level what Jordan Peterson is doing and why he's doing it. Okay? This is the summary. So if you take one thing away from this, this is what you should take away from it. Jordan Peterson's grand solution to war is the elimination of competing group identities. One race, one world, one identity. And evil will be vanquished, and paradise on earth will result from the elimination of group identity. That is why he is so rabidly opposed to identity politics, because he literally believes it is the root of all evil. And so this is why he is so focused on fighting nationalism. That's why he is so focused on opposing anything to do with identity politics. It is because he is worse than a generic globalist. He is a religious obsessive who has a Messiah complex and a utopian vision. And if you know anything about the history of utopias, and you may recall that the word utopia literally means no place, then you can understand that this utopian vision that he is attempting to sell, that he's attempting to convince young men to adopt, is only going to lead to tremendous devastation and destruction, the very thing that he claims to want to stop. So that's how I address those questions. I hope that you find that more specific and clarifying than some of my previous talks on Jordanetics. And if you have any questions, then I would encourage you to go to the blog, go to voxday.blogspot.com, and I've posted a lengthy section from Maps of Meaning, which I consider to be the most important core of it, and I've actually bolded the text, portions of the text, all of it Jordan Peterson's own words, so that you can see very clearly that what I am saying is a accurate, fair, and entirely legitimate summary and criticism of Jordan Peterson's philosophy. Have a good evening. We'll see you the next time.